Well, good evening to everyone, and welcome to November's Aging Well. Before we get started, before I even say the thank yous, on behalf of Amber Brooks, our speaker, Courtney Hayes, Audrey Belfaro, Tom Roth, and myself, we want to give a very heartfelt thank you to all our veterans and the families of our veterans. While my dad served, he did not make a career of it, but my father-in-law did. And I saw the commitment and the sacrifices that his wife, their family made supporting him in his military service. So thank you to our veterans and thank you to the families of our veterans. And while I'm saying thank you, I always have to thank our team. And tonight, I just have to let y'all know, Courtney Hayes is doing the heavy lifting on her own. Tom Roth, the member of our team who typically does the technical behind the scenes, is off. And so Courtney is doing it all. And so I just have to send love and appreciation to Courtney because this isn't either one of our true professions or our training. We do this for the love of aging well and for the love of healthy aging and for you. So I just have to thank her. We have a wonderful show for you tonight, a great speaker, and two really fun feature programs that we're going to jump in and get started. So Chef Valentine Bello is the executive chef at River Birch Lodge. And he not only created a fabulous meal that you are going to see all the prep for, this was a first for me. At the end, after he had made this beautiful dish, he goes, okay, let's sit down and have some. So he invited me to join him, and I was able to firsthand enjoy this and share with him how delicious it is. So I'm not going to wait another minute because this is a dish that you are going to want to make. And there he did give kind of a shortcut because making the crab meat shrimp filling was pretty intense. But he also said you can get crab cakes ready made at most grocery stores. So just keep that in mind that instead of having to make your shrimp and crab cake filling, you can probably find one in the grocery store. So I'm going to turn it over to Chef Val and enjoy.
Hello, Dave. Thanks for having us. Thanks for being. I'm glad to be part of Aging Well. My name is Chef Valentin. We're from River Birch Lodge, and today we're gonna make some shrimp and crab stuffed salmon on a cedar plank. So here, this procedure, we just have an ounce of salmon. The way we cut it is just gonna cut a little bit in half and make a little incision to make like a bag, small bag, so we can stuff everything in it. Here we have already our mix, which is a mix of shrimp and crab. So we're just gonna make just a little line, try to stuff it in. We can put as much as we can. Making it looks nice and pretty. Then we had our cedar plank. That's the one we're gonna use. And I recommend if you don't have some like chef seasoning, you can use salt and pepper. It's something simple that you can have at home. We're gonna let it cook for 15 minutes at 350 degrees on a conventional oven. While we're waiting on our salmon to be cooked, we're gonna make some shrimp. Well, I mean some lemon cream sauce to be on top of the salmon. Just easy procedure. Gonna add a little bit of butter on our pan. some garlic. Salt and pepper. I'm gonna cook the garlic about 30 seconds until feel the smell of it. Once like that, I'm gonna add like 2 tablespoons of white wine. Lemon juice. ¿No tienes crema? Tráete una heavy cream. Okay. And then we're gonna add a heavy cream. Parmesan cheese. And then we can reduce the heat by half. As a side for the dish, we're gonna do some broccolini. And add butter to it. And garlic. This our sauce. Spit about for 2 minutes. It's getting thick and creamy. You can smell it. Good. Once we cook the garlic a little bit, for about a minute, we're gonna add the broccoli. There's some salt. And we're gonna start get the plate ready for it. The other side we're gonna do is gonna be a loaded baked potato. We bake these potatoes for an hour at 350 degrees. So what we're gonna do is just put some butter and make it loaded. Sour cream, cheddar cheese, bacon, and onions. Let's start getting everything ready. We still have 6 more minutes on our salmon, so we have this part ready. Once it's ready, we're gonna plate it and we put the sauce on it. All right, the timer went off for the 15 minutes to see the plan, which means this is ready. I get used to have things, so you guys really need talks or something, but For me, I'm okay with it. I don't really need them. Then we're gonna do is just put our cream on top of it. And then here's our shrimp and crab stuffed salmon with lemon pepper cream sauce on it. Let's enjoy it. Thanks, Deb. We're gonna try it, and we'll send you the recipe. And don't forget, guys, if you wanna have this dish, we just have it on the weekends, sometimes on a feature. You come to see us at River Beach Lodge. We're here ready to serve you. All right, Deb, we made this beautiful dish in about 20 minutes. Why don't you come with me and enjoy this beautiful dish? It will be great.
And I don't know if y'all could tell, but I have been in a lot of kitchens in a lot of restaurants around this general area, Winston and beyond. And I have to tell you, that was one of the cleanest kitchens I've ever been in since I've been doing this. And so I cannot say enough shout outs to River Birch Lodge. Their food is amazing and their kitchen is spotless. So anyway, I would encourage you to try it. And it is something I really believe even maybe I could make if I can find the crab cakes. So anyway, now we're going to move on to our adventure, to our Living Well segment. And I don't know how many of you watched the evolution of the conservatory, the greenhouse, out at Reynolda Gardens. But it was a very lengthy process. And Jon Roethling, who is the director of the Reynolda Gardens, is going to take us and give us a personal tour of the new Brown Family Conservatory. And it is phenomenal. And just as a reminder, it's totally free to visit. So we have no excuse not to go.
Thanks, Deb. It's great to be part of Aging Well, and we're so delighted to welcome you here to the Reynolda Welcome Center, as well as the Brown Family Conservatory. This has been a big undertaking, and we're so delighted to share it with your group and your community. It's just been a fantastic journey of really revitalizing this place. So come on in. So in this space that was the florist workshop, we've reimagined it as the Reynolda Welcome Center. And this is the landing point for everyone ideally as they come to Reynolda, whether they're discovering it right from the beginning. It's kind of a concierge. It's obviously, a gift shop where you can find all sorts of things, a lot specific to Reynolda. We even have honey that's collected from the hives at Reynolda. And we do have plant sales that occur in the melon house that's behind me. Lots of really cool tropicals, unique things that we propagate from the collections here, ideally things you won't find anywhere else. But this has become a great integral starting point for your journey here. So as we step into the Brown Family Conservatory, just a little bit of history. This greenhouse was constructed in 1913. It was a Lord and Burnham, which I like to describe as kind of the IKEA for the well-off, because it was a kit. You would kind of pick what layout you had, what the finials would be, what your entrance looked like. But this is one of the few remaining ones that really predates, being on an estate that was actually kept in good condition. So starting almost 2 years ago, we shut down in October of 2023. And we began a complete restoration of this space to really bring back all the architecture from 1913, but also to bring in the technology of 2024, 25. So I like to say we've got beauty and brains in this place now, because it's all controlled by computer, rather than beforehand when we actually had to hand crank vents open and close. So let's step into the Palm House and we'll talk a little bit about what we've done here. Okay, so what we're doing is we're standing in the Palm House, and historically this was the only space that actually was designed and was display. The wings that exist on the greenhouse were actually production. They grew roses, carnations, hothouse vegetables, and they even operated that way for us before we did the renovation. We grew our plants for the plant sale or plants that went into the gardens in those spaces. But when we did the restoration, like I said, our goal was to really bring back the architecture, but also lean into advances that have been made technology and materials-wise. One of those advances we were able to do was, if any of you had been here before, you remember our shades were aluminum blinds that coated the dome and coated the other areas of the greenhouse. What we've done in the dome, it's tinted glass now. So that helps cut down a lot of the UV or the sun penetration. So what that's allowed us to do is it's opened up the dome, and on a sunny day, you can just see the clear blue sky. The architecture is just allowed to sing. So that's been a huge change. It was wonderful when we first reopened, watching people's reaction walking into this space. And traditionally in this space, you know, we try to keep it a little bit more subtle. You know, I joke and say we don't want people to get hit in the head with a Technicolor bat. We want it to be a cool, you know, kind of soothing space. We've got 2 little water features in here, so you've got the sound of water echoing in here. But we do rotate things in and out. So in the holiday season, you'll come in here, it'll feel one way. When you come in when we do our orchid show, it'll be a completely different feel. So it'll change throughout the season, and our goal is we want you to keep coming back and see how it's changed. And it's also one of the fun things is you know, no plant here is sacred, so nothing has to stay here. We can always choose new things. So that's been kind of the evolution as we tinker around. You know, after a couple months of going, oh, this looks tired, let's bring something fresh in. So it's been really fun in this first year of seeing how the space has evolved. We're learning things as we go along, some good, some, oh, we need to improve that, but that's part of gardening. Okay, so the space we're standing in right now is what we basically call our orchid room, and it houses our orchid collection. Right now, this is the least designed space. Basically, this is the best place to house our orchid collection. Long-term vision is we will build an additional facility that any orchids that aren't in bloom will not be down here. We will just bring things down here as they bloom, but right now this is the best place to house our collection. We also have built some other collections in this space, and of course, you know, we do want to gussy it up a bit and make it look as pretty as we can. But in addition to the orchids, one collection that I wanted to focus on was African violets and their relatives. African violets are something that people can identify with, whether, you know, oh, I've grown those, or my grandmother grew them. There's a connection with that plant. But me being me, I want to, you know, show people there is so much more out there that we aren't exposed to. So I've chosen to pick that collection as one that we can bring in lots of different things. So like there's African violets, but there's these really cool things called, this is Chirida. Let me bring it up to the camera. So it's just a fantastic, it operates just like an African violet, but just fantastic blooms. And one nice thing for us is they propagate easily. So one goal we have is, you know, lots of these cool plants that you might not see anywhere else. We want to be able to propagate them and share them with people. Share them in the way that, you know, we sell them through the gift shop, but that's a way to get people out here because we want to be the source for things that you won't find anywhere else. So, you know, like I said, we've got all the orchids in here, all the different African violet relatives. It's become, you know, a little more interesting as it goes, as we keep tinkering with it. We had the fantastic team at Wake Forest Construction that built us these wonderful planter boxes that we can put our hanging orchids on. So this will still constantly evolve, and down the road it will become even grander. So in this room, this is basically our tropical house, and this is basically John's little playhouse, because I like to bring in lots of weird different things, because my goal is, you know, you've got this grand structure. I don't want to have plants that you've seen everywhere else. I want to have things that you walk in and go, oh my God, what is that? Some of the things that we've chosen to focus on in terms of the collections here are members of the ginger family, and it's a huge family, lots of diversity, really cool plants. This is one of the gingers. This is called Glaba, or dancing ladies orchid, even though it's not technically an orchid. But we've got a number of different ones. This one is a white flowered one. We've got, dark, like hot pink flowered ones, really delicate looking ones. This is the family that if you like turmeric, to heal, for inflammation, that's a ginger. Also just the ginger of the edible ginger that we have in our meals, that's a true ginger as well. So really in this space, we like to bring in things that, I've got specialty nurseries that I order from in Hawaii, other areas, plant collectors that we share things back and forth. So my goal is you walk in here and there's tons of things in here that you're just like, oh my, I've never seen something like this. That's the whole point of the discovery and the excitement of this place. And that's what we want to keep making fresh. So things constantly are getting rotated back and forth from up in the production area down to this space. So the plant I'm standing next to is one of the really unique ones in the collection. This is a Morphophallus titanum, or the corpse flower. This, when it comes into flower, it smells like rotting flesh because it's pollinated by flies. So it actually, the color of it looks like a carcass that's been opened up. Really appetizing, but these things are absolutely amazing. It's a bulb. And ours is probably at least 5 years away from flowering. When they flower, the actual flower can stand, taller than I am. Tony Avon over at Plant Delights Nursery over in Raleigh and Juniper Level Botanical Garden, they just flowered one of theirs, and in 3 days they had 8,500 people come through the nursery to smell it, but also to see it, because they are absolutely amazing when they come into flower. And lots of different botanical gardens, when they get theirs to flower, they name them, and it's always funny what they choose. I've heard Little Stinker, one out in the Midwest, named theirs Taylor Snift. So it's just it's a really cool plant, even when it's not in flower. I mean, to watch this thing come from nothing to this giant stalk emerging, and right now you're just seeing the leaf unfurling at this point. So we're really excited. This will be something, a couple years down the road. We'll make a big to-do about this when this one flowers. Okay, right now we're standing in what we call our arid house. In this space, what I really wanted to do was, prior to the restoration, we had all these little cacti and succulents in little pots, and I always joke, it kind of felt like plant prison to me. So I wanted to be able to display those type of plants in a more landscape fashion. So we actually, with the benches that we had created, which I think I wanted to point out, these benches, the consultant we worked with actually had the original molds that these benches were made from. So we were actually able to recreate the feet and their attachment and everything else. We recreated those. Those actually were only in the palm house, but we took that element and bled it through the rest of the conservatory. So we've got a little bit of a lip. We laid down some fabric, but the planting mix that we've got drains really well, which is ideal for succulents and things like that. So we were able to plant in these areas a bit. And one thing I wanted to do in this space was, our goal is to highlight the 5 Mediterranean climates of the world. And so it's laid out in this house that way. So in one corner we've got Southern California, in another corner we've got the Mediterranean Basin, then Southern Australia, South Africa, and then Chile. And this is a shared climate of being wet for a period and then really dry for another period. And kind of the goal is thinking about education in terms of, it would be really cool to bring kids in and go, okay, this is a similar climate that's in 5 distinct areas of the world. What similarities do you see? How have the plants kind of adapted to be, to gather all that rain when it actually happens and carry it through the dry period? So education's a big thing of what we're trying to do. So trying to, create these opportunities, but also to make them look really well as well. one of the things that I love is like we also incorporated Mexico because it's the 4th largest flora in the world. Lots of cool plants. Also, by highlighting South Africa, so many bulbs. That's their center of diversity. So amaryllis. So I've been collecting amaryllis species. So we kind of rotate those out in and out as they come into bloom. But this has been a really fun area to watch it evolve. And as the succulents have really settled in and started filling in, the display that we have behind us, we actually had an intern this summer, Eric Park, and he actually built this display that we've created that allows us to have planting areas in it. So as with anything in here, nothing is ever set in stone. We're constantly trying to evolve the spaces, make them as the best they can be. So, again, it's one of those goals of we don't want you to visit just one time. We want this to be a regular thing. Come out here, see how things have changed. Like I said, the seasons will change in here. I always kind of say in the house, they rotate exhibitions. We do too. We just call it spring, summer, winter, and fall. One important thing, when I say about coming back, one of the beauties of Reynolda Gardens is that we are free and open to the public. So this amazing resource, from the support of Wake Forest University and also our donors, that keeps it free and open. So it's an amazing thing that when so many people come in here and they walk into the Welcome Center and they're going, oh, how much to enter? And usually it's shocked when we say, no, it's free, go enjoy. But it does take a community to keep this free and open to the public. So we're always thankful to our donors for how much they support us. So we're standing right now in the orangery, which is kind of our last display area. This one we really wanted to highlight basically the history of how conservatories came to be. Originally you had, England's not known for its citrus groves, so when they were out collecting and bringing all these, plants back, they didn't have spaces to overwinter citrus, so they started building these houses to bring those in during winter. And they gradually became more and more elaborate and became conservatories. So we highlight a number of different citrus in this space. Thanks to our friends up at Biltmore, they gave us the advice of, pick citrus trees that have smaller size fruit because it tends to be a smaller size tree. Big honking grapefruit, big honking tree. We don't necessarily have the space for that. So we've got a number of different citrus in here. We've got kumquats, we've got I think tangerines. We also have some really cool, me wanting to have things you're not used to seeing. A plant called Australian finger lime, which when you open them up, the little cells almost are like caviar. They're all loose. So it's a delicacy. So we've got 2 different finger limes in here. One of the other plants that we've chosen to highlight in these areas, we've got a lot of herbs in here because that kind of harkens back to the original orangeries. Scented geraniums. Another collection that we're starting to build is begonias, so a lot of different begonias in here. But it's fun to be able to bring kids in here and show them plants that, they may not have seen a citrus tree. Or we've got a number of different coffee plants. We have things like pineapples, a lot of different varieties of pineapples. We have star fruit. We actually have fruit coming on that. So, again, it's my goal to transport you to places that aren't local, that places that maybe you never get a chance to go visit in the wild, but that you can see things that you would not normally see except in a special place like this. So, as I said before, this space continually evolves. During holiday season, we've been collecting a lot of different amaryllis, so we hope to have about 100 different amaryllis in here blooming. It'll change out during the season. So one thing that's really nice about this space, we've got a couple benches in here. We see people that'll just sit in here for a little while, usually during the cooler times of year, not necessarily during summer. But we have seen people bring a book and just sit in here for a little bit. And just, this should be a place to escape, to kind of just decompress, to just, soak in the beauty and find a peaceful place to be. So I definitely invite you to come out often, see what we're doing in the gardens. You'll many times run into the gardeners, chat them up. We love sharing about what we're doing and what our vision and dreams are for this place. So thank you, Deb, for inviting me to share the newly restored Brown Family Conservatory, and I definitely invite you and everyone to come out to visit often.
You know, this is such an amazing resource that we have in our hometown. And the fact that it is free and open to the public just makes it even cooler. So again, speaking of cooler, these cooler temps we have now, that's a place we can still go and play and just go explore everything that these gardens have to offer. So now moving into the meat of our presentation, I want to remind everybody to if you have questions for Dr. Brooks, please put them in the chat. And at the end of her presentation, we will come back and address all those questions. But I'm so happy to introduce and to get to share this information with you from Dr. Amber Brooks. She is an anesthesiologist. She specializes in pain management and really dealing with a variety of pain issues. And her talk tonight is how to beat the pain of aging. So I'm turning it over to you, Dr. Brooks, and thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Deb, for having me back and to this wonderful Aging Well series that you and team help organize. I can't wait to visit the conservatory. It looks like an amazing place to experience new things and some relaxation. So like Deb said, I'm a pain management physician, and I just want to make sure that my slides are showing okay.
Yes, they look great.
Okay, excellent. So I want to start off by sharing a story. Pictured here is my grandmother. Yes, her name was Helen Keller, and she passed away in 2017. She was my favorite person on the earth. She was just an extraordinary woman. She was a teacher, and I called her the Queen of Cincinnati. We could not go anywhere in Cincinnati without her being recognized. She really lived a vibrant life up until the last 15 years of her life. And she had a multitude of chronic health conditions, but the one condition that limited her quality of life, her ability to be that vibrant woman that we all knew her to be, was chronic pain. She suffered from chronic low back pain, as well as chronic joint pain, and developed neuropathy secondary to her diabetes. And so she was tried on a variety of different medications and injection therapies over the years that either caused intolerable side effects or were simply ineffective. And so imagine me, her oldest granddaughter. I like to say that I was the favorite, but if my siblings and cousins were here, they would definitely argue with me on that. But imagine her oldest granddaughter, who is a board certified anesthesiologist and pain medicine physician. And I really felt like I couldn't help my own grandmother. And so that is part of the inspiration behind my career trajectory that changed in early 2016 as some of the guidelines and recommendations around treating chronic pain were changing, because at that time we were facing a national health crisis known as the prescription opioid epidemic. And so like my grandmother, I was trying my best to treat patients with limited options, especially older adults who are more susceptible to the side effects of all pain medications, including non-opioid and opioid pain medications. So, as you all probably know, our population is aging really rapidly. As of 2020, we now have more older adults over the age of 65 as compared to children who are less than 5 years old. And that's not just a statistic for our country, it's a statistic for the world that we now have more older adults than we do children under the age 5. And my research and my clinical practice primarily center around older adults. Why? Because as we age, or as I like to tell my chronic pain patients, as we mature like fine wine, we are more likely to suffer from chronic pain, and the overall prevalence is estimated to be as high as 76%, more prevalent in residential care or assisted living facilities. And it's usually a chronic multi-site pain condition, meaning that as we age, it's more likely that we're going to have pain in multiple areas of our body, not just one. And this is what makes pain really complicated. Pain impacts all areas of our life. It's not just a physical manifestation. It affects our mood. It's oftentimes associated with chronic psychosocial factors. 50% of older adults who have chronic pain, 50% of adults who have chronic pain also suffer from a coexisting mood disorder or anxiety. And so it's a condition that impacts all areas and aspects of our life. And I always tell my patients that if their mood is not controlled and if they're not sleeping, it doesn't matter what we're doing to address the physical manifestations of the chronic pain. It's just going to be more challenging. And so that's why we really try in my clinic practice to use a holistic approach, not just considering the physical manifestations of the pain, but also looking at other aspects that affect a person's pain experience. The other thing that makes pain challenging as we age is that there are changes in our bodies that impact the way that we break down medications, because our kidney function and our liver function may change as we age. And in addition, many of the medications that we commonly use to treat pain, whether they're over-the-counter medications or prescribed, can sometimes have negative impacts on our cognition or our ability to think clearly. And as we age, we're also, more likely to have coexisting other chronic medical conditions. And treating pain again in this population is challenging. We oftentimes are trying to make sure that we're finding a medication that's not going to interfere with other medications that are being prescribed, that are going to have the least amount of side effects and be tolerable. Sometimes, especially if patients have dementia, for example, we're relying heavily on caregivers' feedback to make sure that we are adjusting treatments accordingly. And then, like I said earlier, coexisting mood disorders or anxiety or untreated mental illness can be very challenging in this population. So, wow, I wish that I could do this. I cannot. I promise you I cannot. But, I love this picture because it demonstrates the importance of flexibility, maintaining our mobility and our physical functioning as we age. And those have the added benefits of physical activity and aging is that we can preserve mobility, we can reduce falls, and we even have research to show that when we're more physically active, moving our bodies, that we can improve the clarity of our thinking. The most common form of chronic pain in older adults is low back pain. Almost 40% of adults have chronic low back pain, and it's the leading cause of disability and missed work in the United States. Lower back pain can be multifactorial. There are lots of important structures in our back, including bones, ligaments, disc, and over time, we're more susceptible to injury or just the degenerative changes that are associated with aging. You all may have experienced a herniated disc before. That can be highly unpleasant. And if that disc is impinging on a nerve, it can send shooting sharp pains down the leg that are commonly known as sciatica. And then there can be issues with alignment in the low back that can cause pain. We call this a fancy term as spondylolisthesis, where one bone in the back is placed ahead of another. And then lastly, a common condition that we see in aging adults with chronic low back pain is the presence of spinal stenosis, or narrowing around the spinal cord and around the nerves that exit the spinal cord. As we age, we are more susceptible to fractures in the back. And sometimes these fractures can be associated with trauma, and sometimes they're not associated with trauma. But this picture here displays the existence of a compression fracture. As you can see, there's a loss of the height of the bone here called the vertebral body as compared to the other bones in the back. And the reasons or the risk factors for compression fractures are multifactorial. Women who are postmenopausal and over the age of 55 are at risk for compression fractures. The presence of cancer, especially cancer in the spine, is another risk factor. Having a diagnosis of osteoporosis also puts one at risk from developing a vertebral compression fracture. And then as we age, it's very common to develop that hump in the back or that curvature in the back that we call kyphosis. It's very common as we age to lose the cushion that lies between the vertebral bodies or the bones in our back. And so as we age, we can lose 2 inches or more in our height. And then lastly, the use of chronic steroid therapies for different autoimmune conditions like lupus, for example, are risk factors for developing a compression fracture. So whenever I see an older adult in my pain clinic who has experienced a really sudden, sharp onset of debilitating pain, they go one day from being very functional to the next day not being able to walk without significant pain, or having to use an assistive device like a cane or a rollator, I get very suspicious of a compression fracture, especially if any of these risk factors are present. So switching gears here a little bit, I want to just provide an overview, a high-level overview of how we treat pain in my practice. So we try to use what we call a multimodal approach. We try to use a combination of medications, treatments, various interventions such as injections to holistically address a patient's pain experience. And some of those treatments are listed here. Medications or those pharmacological treatments. We try to first use non-opioid medications that are going to have the least amount of side effects. I'm always really cautious in using what we call non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen or Aleve or naproxen over the counter, especially in older adults, because that medication is primarily metabolized or broken down by the kidneys. And so always really cautious about making sure that we're monitoring kidney function closely if we're going to start or continue an NSAID in an older adult. We use physical therapy, occupational therapy, exercise programs alongside these other treatment options. And then in my clinic, I'm going to talk to you about what I think are some really cool ways to address chronic pain via injections and interventional therapies. And then lastly, again, like I was saying earlier, to make sure that we're treating the mood disorders, the sleep disorders, we use a variety of other non-pharmacological or non-medication treatment options like mindfulness, which is a guided form of relaxation and breathing, acupuncture, massage, music therapy, and something called a special type of therapy intervention called cognitive behavioral therapy have all been found to be beneficial in treating chronic pain. Some of the challenges that we face in a clinical setting is having insurances that are willing to cover the cost of those non-pharmacological treatments. So here pictured is a treatment that we use called radiofrequency ablation, and we can use this in various areas of the body. But essentially, we're targeting the nerves that are responsible for pain in the joints in the back. There are small nerves that innervate or provide some feeling or sensation in the facet joints, which are the arthritic joints in the back. And so we can target these nerves using a technique called radiofrequency ablation, which is a fancy term for heating up or deadening or burning the nerve that supplies feeling or sensation to that joint space that is ultimately causing pain. And this is one of the more common procedures that we offer in our clinic. One of the more advanced procedures that we can use to treat pain is called spinal cord stimulation. Via a minimally invasive surgery technique, we can thread leads into the epidural space of the back that can provide a special type of stimulation to the nerve pathways in the back that ultimately are transmitted and processed by our brain as a pleasant sensation, and over time that pleasant sensation is recognized more than the chronic pain experience. Here's another example of a radiofrequency ablation procedure. In this particular picture, we're targeting the arthritis and pain in the neck. So just switching gears, just talking about some research opportunities that I'm involved in this space. So I have the pleasure of working with a research team of folks. And what we're doing is we are thinking about innovative ways to bridge treatment gaps in older adults with digital health technologies. And I want to just preface this by saying that this is not a one-size-fits-all. I think that it depends on patients' willingness to utilize and learn these various technologies. And it's one of several tools in our toolbox that we can leverage to try to meet people where they are, especially older adults who may not be able to come in for a clinical study in person, once a week or even once every month. This allows us, by leveraging technology, we're able to meet participants in the home where they're at. And so we were really fortunate, my collaborators and I, to be funded by the National Institute of Health, specifically the National Institute on Aging. We received a $5.7 million 5-year grant to launch a study called the Mobile Intervention to Reduce Chronic Pain and Improve Health in Older Obese Adults. We know that when patients who suffer from chronic pain, especially from lower extremity chronic pain, that meaning pain of the hip and knees, that they're more likely to be sedentary, meaning they don't move as much as someone who doesn't have knee osteoarthritis or hip osteoarthritis, and that puts them at risk for developing obesity or being overweight. And so our intervention is really designed to help older adults break out of that cycle and is focused on weight loss, focused on pain reduction, and then giving patients tools in their homes to help them manage and deal with chronic pain. So here are my wonderful research collaborators. Dr. Fanning and I have been collaborating together since 2016. So for the last 9 years, I'm working on this idea of meeting patients where they are in their chronic pain experience. And then my colleague, Dr. Megan Irby, oversees our community advisory board. We really felt that it was important to receive feedback from community members like yourselves to help guide our intervention and really help us deliver a robust program. And then this is Iris Ling. She is our biostatistician for the study. And so what does this study involve? So we are able, via weekly virtual sessions, we're able to connect with you in the home, and we are able to deliver or mail an activity monitor, a Fitbit. It's called a Fitbit monitor, similar to other activity watches that are on the market. We also send or mail a scale, and then we give participants instructions about how to upload a mobile app that can be accessed on the phone or on the computer. And so we meet patients where they are in their journey with their chronic pain, as well as their journey with comfort levels using these various technologies. But what this allows us to do is it allows us to deliver the intervention 100% virtually. So we are recruiting participants from anywhere across the country, and we are hoping to recruit 200 participants from all areas across the country. So if you or someone that you know has knee or hip osteoarthritis and is over the age of 65, and by the way, we have no upper limit. And so if you meet our study criteria and you are 99 years old, you are welcome to join our study. You must also have a willingness to participate in virtual visits, virtual weekly visits with our research staff, and must be willing to just learn how to use the Fitbit, and also willing to learn how to use the mobile app, which allows for two-way communication with our research team and with you. So we can see your daily steps, we can see your pain scores, and we can give you real-time feedback about some things that you can do differently to impact your pain, and also to help you lose weight and to move your body throughout the day in whatever way that is pleasurable to you and in whatever way that you have access to. So this does not require a gym membership. You can do you can participate in this study without ever having to leave your home. I am going to stop there and open it up to questions. Deb, I know, is monitoring the chat, and just look forward to dialoguing with you all and answering any questions that you may have.
Well, I want to ask the first question just to make sure people are aware. Does it cost anything for me to be a part of your study?
It costs zero. Just need willingness to participate, and the ability to access and load the mobile app on your phone or on your computer, and willingness to learn how to use the technologies that we provide.
So, Dr. Brooks, would there be somebody, if I'm not very technology savvy, could somebody walk me through that and help me get everything loaded on?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a whole team of folks who are willing and able to give step-by-step elbow support to older adults, and you can come in never having used technology. All you need is just a willingness to learn and work side by side with our staff to get you up to speed.
You know, I've heard the expression motion is lotion.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just seems to me to be very ironic that when I'm in pain, I don't feel like moving. but by
Mhm.
not moving, it has the probability of increasing my pain.
Yeah.
So, what would you recommend for somebody as a first step?
Yeah. So, the phenomenon that you call, I call it the old Chevy phenomenon. And it's like an old Chevy. It's like, you need to get that old Chevy that engine reared up. And then once you get it going, it's good to go. And it's the same thing with joint pain. I oftentimes hear from my patients that the first thing in the morning is the worst for arthritis type pain. But once they get moving, that lotion is motion phenomenon, once they get moving their bodies throughout the day, that the pain tends to lessen. And we know that there's science behind that, right? We know that as we move our bodies, we release natural endorphins and neurotransmitters that help with our pain experience, help with improvements in our mood. So movement really is its own form of medicine.
I agree. Okay, some more questions that have come in. I have a relative who lives in Nebraska who meets the criteria mentioned except obesity. Might they still qualify?
Yeah, unfortunately, this particular study is aimed at folks who are overweight. So you must have a body mass index of 30 or over. But we do have other pain studies that are happening throughout Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist. And so if you visit Be Involved, our Be Involved website, it will provide a plethora of studies that family member may qualify for.
Okay. And also, anybody, excuse me, on this webinar can always email me any questions in addition to what we're asking, and I can always forward those to Dr. Brooks. So we will get your questions answered. And one of the requests is, can we post the QR code again? Yes, we can. And you will be getting a copy of Dr. Brooks' full slides
Yes.
with all of this. So you will have that. So again, maybe at the end, we can go back and post that QR code. Another
Excellent.
question is, what is the duration of this study?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I'm sorry that I didn't mention that earlier. It's a 6-month study. And so you are either randomized or placed into a usual care group or into the intervention group. And so that experience is 6 months. And then after the intervention and usual care time is over, then we follow up with you on a once a month basis for 6 more months, just to check in, see how you're doing, see how your weight loss journey is going, see how your chronic pain experience is going.
How do we know if knee pain is osteoarthritis or something else?
Yeah, so usually for an official diagnosis, usually it requires an X-ray to confirm the beginnings of osteoarthritis, or a diagnosis from a physician who knows the criteria for osteoarthritis. But most of my patients in my clinic are diagnosed for their joint pain via an X-ray, and that helps with diagnosing the severity. We can grade, if we have an X-ray, we can grade the arthritis as mild, moderate, or severe, and that helps guide our treatment.
I see a lot of neighbors that are losing weight, and I presume some are on the newer weight loss drugs. Are you seeing improvements in chronic pain in these people?
Oh, wow. Great question. Yes, the GLP-1s and GLP-2s, like the Zepbounds and the Ozempics and the Wegovy, are all the new buzzwords. And there was a study that was released in the New England Journal of Medicine a little over 6 months ago that did, in fact, find significant improvements in knee osteoarthritis pain with the use of those types of medications. So yes, there seems to be some beginning data or pilot data to suggest that when you lose weight, there are improvements in the pain. The reasons for the weight loss are still being debated. So it could be just the mechanics of having more weight on your joints, and when you reduce that weight, your pain is improved. But there also could be something happening at the cellular level with regards to impacts on inflammation and those inflammatory markers that are associated with chronic pain. So the jury is still out, but ultimately the early data is showing that yes, there are improvements in chronic pain experiences, especially with knee osteoarthritis when you lose weight.
Well, lots of benefits to that. So, well, I just want to thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, viewers, attendees of this, for amazing questions. Thank you so much. And you know what? I want another date with you. How about December 9th? Come back here and let's talk. We've got more speakers lined up and some really fun adventures. So trust me on this, I have got some adventures lined up for you. So until we meet again, everybody live safe so we can all age our best.
Thanks, everyone.